record on my computer. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for taking the time to show up here, investing time with us today. It's, these conversations are a lot more exciting with friends and people who believe what you believe and kind of share that energy, because we know that, again, going into 2021, congruency and alignment with a community is probably, it's one of the few things that's going to get us through. My name is David Jelks. I'm in Western Canada. I'm in British Columbia. And I've been around, I've been in the health and wellness industry for over 25 years, and my fascination is in neuroscience. I got a background in theology, but my fascination is in neuroscience. I'm kind of fascinated by everything. So I have a bit of entrepreneurial and educational ADHD, and but I've learned to focus in on it. And along the way, when I get into these beautiful conversations, I meet extraordinary people. And I was so fortunate last year, or the year before, I guess, in October, Sarah Goggin-Young here, my colleague, was a part of a retreat we had in Mexico for the I Am Project. And it was really interesting because it's, part of the magic when she saw, actually you can tell the story if you like, but she saw the notice about the retreat, and it was kind of serendipitous for you, wasn't it?
Completely. Hi, everybody. I'm so honored to be here with you. And my name is Sarah Goggin-Young. And just like David said, this is about like the magic of the universe. I was an elite athlete growing up. I fell into 10 years. I fell into 10 years of addiction and alcoholism. Okay. So I went from a high to a super low, got my life back together 17 years ago, and became an attorney. And then 5 years ago, I hit my second rock bottom. And that's when I turned to health and wellness. And that's when David and I met. We met about 3 years ago. And all I wanted to do was transform my life. I wanted to become the best version of myself, and I didn't know how. So I aligned myself with people that lifted me up and showed me this new way of living, this new way of thought patterns. And David was one of those people. And I had 5 years ago, I left a toxic marriage, brought my 2 little kids, and I had moved 4 times in 5 years. One of the times that I was moving, and I'm hustling, right? Moving basically by myself with 2 little ones. And all of a sudden I get this picture of a beach. And this voice said, "You need to go on vacation." Literally started laughing, was like, yeah, right. When am I going to have time to go on vacation? I am moving for the 3rd time with 2 little kids. And this picture came out again. It was a tiki hut on a beach. And then I got an email, and the email was from David. And it was inviting me to go on this I Am project. I had no clue what it was. I clicked on the email and opened up, and guess what it was? The same freaking picture that was in my mind. And I was like, oh my God, no way. And then we talked, and we, and I went on this training and completely trained my life. And that's why we're completely changed my life and gave me a place to center. That's why we're here right now. So it's the magic of the universe when you wish for something, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. It truly comes back to you. And I am blessed and honored that David is in my life and has taught me so much.
Yeah, it's again, it's such an interesting process. Has anybody, and we'll get into the content here really quickly, but has anybody had an idea and had an intuition about something, and it wouldn't go away, and it stuck with you, and you could see it and you could experience it, but nobody else could? Somebody ever had that intuition? And and how long do you hang on to it? So this conversation around the I Am project, this process started for me about well over 12 years ago. And it was one of these things where I could see it, and I'm looking at things, I'm going, it's just, I'm seeing these connections, and nobody else could see it. I'm trying to explain it, but I didn't have the vocabulary. I couldn't explain it. It was an intuition that kept prompting me. And I would start writing things on scraps of paper. I'd be having conversations, and my conversations always repeat. All right. I'm not sure if that's me or, all right. But it's, okay, one second. I'm gonna plug myself in here. Could you imagine doing that for 45 minutes? All right, I gotta see. Okay, I'm plugged in, but somebody. Hey, there's one person here. Okay. Can everybody just check? I'm getting trouble with that. All right. All right. That's not going to work very well, is it? Let me check to make sure everybody's muted here. So there's one person here. Is that better? Oh God, 1 second here. All right, there's one blank spot here. Yeah. Of course, right? The universe is challenging. How badly do you want to do it? Can you, Sarah, can you speak for a second?
Sure. So, all right. Is it me?
There's one blank spot over here. Is that better?
No, it's an echo.
Yeah, I know, but there's one spot over here.
So on my screen,
Try it again.
That's all right. We'll find a solution.
Okay.
so
What if we all just rejoin the meeting again?
I think it's the Kirk without the pictures, because every time it happens, it flashes for sound
Okay.
and everyone else is muted.
Okay, perfect. Okay. There you go. All right, better. Oh, perfect. That's beautiful. Thank you, Lori. You're a lifesaver. Yeah, it's so interesting because I couldn't see it. I couldn't see any name on it. All right. My God. You know, you want to test your conviction about getting something done, right? All right. So one of the things, a couple of things that we want to talk about tonight, and this is all about who you need to be prior to actually creating your vision board. Right. So the real magic. The real magic in creating a vision board and actually making something that's actually that's effective, something that's actually going to work, something that actually has really truly magic to it, starts with creating your own personal vision statement. Now, if you work for a corporation, corporations always have a mission statement, right, of some sort. The unfortunate thing about a mission statement for a corporation is that most people don't remember it and they don't know really what it means, and it just is part of the branding process. But creating your own personal vision statement is a way of how you want to show up inside the world. Now you got to remember, ever since we've been on the planet for thousands of years, and this is for millennia, every culture since we've walked on the earth has had a daily practice. Every culture had a very specific way of thinking, believing, and engaging as a community, right? And that's been the practice all the way through, right? Right up until the 20th century. 20th century was kind of the drop off where we had the advance in scientific revolution, but then magic and mystery got pushed to the wayside because, well, it decided that it was just superstition. The Marxist viewpoint was that like religion was the opiate of the masses. So it really got the scientific revolution really kind of pushed the whole idea of magic and mystery away. But you have to understand, and I think part of the challenge that we're experiencing today is, again, for thousands of years,
for thousands of years, every single day we had a practice, right? We had a spiritual practice or a cultural practice, however you want to frame it, that gave meaning to the way we started the day. It gave meaning to our relationships. It gave meaning to life. It gave meaning to death. It gave meaning to when you planted a crop, when you brought a crop in, right? It gave a meaning to the changing of the seasons. It had profound meaning. Now think about, again, if I think about the neuroscience of this process, just think what happens. If every single day for thousands of years, your ancestors, you go back as far as you can track it, for thousands of years, your ancestors thought a very particular way, a very structured way of thinking and believing. And that thought process and that believing process, of course, started to alter the way the mind was set up, right? So your view of the world started to become very profound because it was looking for a transcendent way of thinking, a transcendent way of believing. And that thought process creates emotions, and these emotions are neuropeptides. So I have a thought, and the thought generates a feeling. And the feeling, of course, is just the chemicals that trip down from the brain. And these neuropeptides, these molecules of emotions that are generated by the repetitive and chronic way of thinking and believing, dock on my organs. They influence my cells. When my cells replicate, they replicate on the influence of this higher thought process, of this repetitive thought process. Now think about it, every single day for thousands of years, that's been our way of thinking, right? And in the 20th century, we just stopped because we thought it was voodoo, it was superstition, it wasn't worth it. And the entire culture kind of went sideways. Now, granted, there's some things that from our ancient history were absolute superstition and have been founded not to be true. But what I found was so interesting when I was reading through this text, Religion and the Disappearance of Magic. What was so interesting was that when people actually perform magic actually really happened, but in a way that they didn't understand. If the whole conversation around quantum physics, they talk about alignment, right? Alignment to the field, this quantum field, and making sure that your thought process and the energy that you're in is consistent with the ideals or that you want, the things that you want to have happen, right? So quantum physics talks about being in alignment on that process, and that process, it's actually, they look at it as a real possible, I mean, not something they can prove 100% under a microscope, but I say the association and the idea of quantum physics is actually really true. It's a real thing. It's a real phenomenon. But if we understand that now, with our scattered mind and with our scattered belief system and with our scattered philosophies, with how shallow that is and most of the way we think, you go back 2,000 years ago where somebody was 100% connected, 100% in belief, 100% consistent, day in, day out. Not only you, but your spouse and your children and your neighbor and your community. And the entire community thought, felt, and believed, acted in the same energy. Don't you think that actually magic might just happen? That would seem absolutely profoundly magical. And maybe where they were tapping into something, what they had was undeniable belief and consistency in the belief, unwavering faith. Now that sounds a bit religious, but actually that's really just kind of scientific. When I have people exercise and when I take people through an exercise program, the very first thing I do is develop core strength. Not only do I have them develop core strength, they have to think about it. They have to understand what it is. They have to understand where it is. They have to understand what it feels like. And we spend the first, maybe even the 4 to 6 weeks of thinking and feeling and doing, thinking and feeling and doing. So the brain lights up and there's a beautiful pattern of core integrity physically, right? You with me so far? So in that process, once they think, feel, and do, and they understand it, they have an image of the core, they see it. They embody it. Now they can feel it. And now they see it and they can feel it. Now they act with it. They see it, they feel it, they act with it. And we know that neuroscience tells us it takes about 6 to 10,000 repetitions to set a pattern. 6 to 10,000 repetitions to redesign a pattern in the mind. Now, when you look at things like mantras, when you think about images, right, that we use on vision boards, where personal development had usurped the idea of magic, right? So the whole idea of mantras, well, when I look at old cultures, the repetition of an idea over and over again, that's not a new idea. It's very specific. But when they used a mantra, when they used an idea, or some pagan cultures called it a spell, right? Whatever you want to call it. But the mantra was associated to a feeling, and it was so precise. which is why I think it had the power that it did historically, which is why it's kind of a bit weak in our modern culture, because we had these ideas, but we don't actually have the unshakable belief. I want to show you something here really quick. And where is it here? All right. Now. All right. You guys all see this? Yep, perfect. All right. So let's look at how we process information. So we have the events of our life, right? So we have sensory information. We have our sensory receptors. It's what we see. It's what we hear, right? It's what we taste. It's what we feel, right? It's what we see. And so these are all the events. All the sensory information is coming at us. And that sensory information, before it makes sense, it actually has to pass through a series of filters, right? And these filters are what we call our perceptual filters. And these perceptual filters that we have in our mind, they delete and they distort and they generalize the information that we're experiencing, right? So with me so far? Right, so we have this beautiful information, that's happening in the world around us, and that's why when they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because what I think is amazing, maybe make like the faded color of pink, maybe that's not everybody's favorite color, but it's what I see, it's my experience, that's why why eyewitness testimony and trials rarely works, because it's mostly wrong, because how our perceptions are really generally quite flawed because of this filtering. And deletion, for example, we delete important information. If we hear something that goes against what we believe to be true, we'll actually delete it. We won't even take it on as a possible truth, or we'll distort it. Children are really good at distorting information from what you said to what they heard, not even the same sentence. And you go, how did you not hear me? I know what you said, but it's not what I heard, right? And that's a pretty common conversation, not even just with children. And we generalize. Right? We generalize some of the information coming in. And these filters, these perceptual filters that we view the world through, we can actually rewrite them. We can reprogram these filters. These filters are designed and controlled by our meta programs. And now meta programs very simply just means, well, you've heard the idea around programming, right? Your early childhood programming is why you do the things you do. Right, you understand that concept? Well, a meta program is the sum of all the programs. So these are all your experiences. What happened to you when you were 3? What happened to you when you were 10? What happened to you when you're 15, 21? So every peak experience, and I'm not saying a good one, I'm saying every peak experience, actually the body will store away and use that as a program or as a belief system. So these meta programs, like I was saying, they're derived from our memories, the decisions we made based on those memories, the language that we use, our values and beliefs, and of course, it helps generate our attitude. So all this becomes our internal representation, what we believe to be true about the world around us and our capacity to succeed inside of it is based on all this information, right? And this incredibly filtering process. And of course, Tony Robbins talks about state. So our internal representation, how we view the world and the possibility in the world for us to be healthy, to be successful, to be wealthy, to be deeply in love, whatever that looks like for you. And of course, that state of being, of course, affects our physiology, and in turn, it drives our behavior. All right. Oops. Back up here. Now, stop share here for a second. All right. Does that make sense? Do you understand the flow of that? Right. So we have a very malleable subconscious, and quite often we don't really pay attention to it. Has anybody ever actually heard the expression, "That's so unlike her"? That's just not like her, or "That's so unlike him," or "That's so uncharacteristic." It's Debbie, "That's so uncharacteristic of you." And you go, "Yeah, I don't know what happened. I kind of gapped out. I'm not sure what happened." Shannon, that's so unlike you. But if we're saying that, then who are you being if it's not like you? Like, who are you? Who are you being? Right? And so I became fascinated by these languages that were actually telling us something really important was going on. And of course, the last one, of course, I'm not feeling like myself. Right? Well, yeah, it's maybe I'm not actually me at all. Right? And so based on that map that I just walked you through, when you're experiencing the world, part of your memories, and it's classified as your episodic memory. It's like the Netflix of your life, right? Right. So Wendy, you got the Netflix of your life. You got all these season 1 straight through to 52, right? You get all the seasons of your life in there. And when your brain's trying to make a decision on what's good for you and what this means and what's capable, it's going to access your memory, your episodic memory, for reference on what you believe to be true about you. And it doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to be right. It's just what you believe to be true. That's the problem. And when you're not feeling like yourself, you're not. It's not you. And I don't know if you ever witnessed when I work coaching with people, and if I'm talking to somebody and they're relaying experience of when they were younger, and we see, and they're talking about when I was 13, and they start talking to the experience, I'm watching them, and their face changes, and their posture changes, and the tone of their voice changes, and they embody basically the spirit of a 13-year-old child in the body of an adult. It's the most amazing thing to watch. I mean, it's not the greatest thing to happen to an individual because you don't want to be possessed by the spirit of your youth, but it's so interesting to observe, and we don't even know. We don't even know what's happening. And so part of the trick in this process is that as I opened up the conversation about creating your own personal vision statement. So for 2021 to unfold the way that you would like it to be, you must decide how you wish to be in the world. What is your contribution to the world in 2021? If you were to give a gift away or a series of gifts, let's say everybody's entitled to 3 gifts you give away in 2021, gifts that were really important to you, that you think the world could really use, that really came from the very heart-centered gifts. What gifts would those be? Well, what does the world need from you? What does the world need in general? And when you speak to those gifts, those actually are the foundation of your personal vision statement, because that's what you treasure the most. You with me? Right? So it's the same idea when I'm working with somebody physically. If I don't develop the core strength, if they don't know what it feels like, they don't know what it means, then the brain has no access to it because it's too vague. The information is too vague. Right? The brain doesn't have an access to it. And so when you're caught up in the emotions of the day and you're caught up in old patterns of behavior, how will you know? How will you know when you're not being yourself? Because you don't feel like yourself. Right? The easiest thing in the world, it's so simple. I'm a competitive bodybuilder, right? When I'm exercising, right? The whole goal of me when I train is to think about the muscle that I'm training, stabilize the area, and I'm thinking about the muscle, and I actively inside that muscle. When I lose control of the muscle, I stop immediately, reset, and start again. Right? I'm into the feeling of the movement. That's how we function. That is the grace and the beauty of how we function. We just forgot because, for thousands of years, we actually had that practice philosophically, spiritually. We knew what it felt like. Every day we practice our spiritual practice with our community or friends and family, every single day for millennia. So the trick to getting through 2021 is decide what those values are and how they feel and where you feel them inside of you. They're embodied. So when fear shows up, so do your values. And you have a choice in real time, at the same time. And what used to take me weeks and weeks and maybe months to get over and to pull myself out of the ruminating, that constant stress cycle. So have you ever had that problem? Get caught up in a stress cycle, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. And it's just ruminating. It's called a default mode network. It's just a pattern that just kicks in over and over and over again. But the only way to get out of it is decide, well, If I don't want to feel this way, how would I like to feel? That becomes your spiritual practice. That becomes your mantra. That becomes your repetition. And as I said earlier on, it takes 6 to 10,000 repetitions to drive that pattern into the brain. Sounds like a lot. It isn't, because you think about 30,000 thoughts a day, right? So even if you interfered with that bit of chaos that's going on in your head during the day, even a couple times a day, within a period of a couple of weeks, your brain would recognize the change in thought. But more importantly, what would it recognize? The change in how you feel. And if I'm thinking that way and I'm feeling that way, then guess what those filters, those perceptual filters, are going to start doing? It's going to look for evidence of things that are similar. And I'm going to start remembering things that are true, which means my life is filled with grace, most of it. My life is filled with possibility, most of it. But what do I remember? The shit show. I remember everything that went wrong, because negative emotions are they're higher resolution, they're easier to access, and they're designed to keep us safe. And that's been true all through history. What we should have had, what we did have organically in the very beginning, is we had nature was trying to kill us, life was stressful, very negative, but we had our spiritual practices, we had our cultural practices every single day that offset the negativity of the world. We kept the negativity and then expanded 10x, and we got rid of our practice. No wonder we're losing our minds. It's so simple. Does it sound simple? And the whole ideas of alignment. Now, Sarah and I were talking earlier on, and about how to generate the magic. How do you actually create the magic? And she, Sarah's been a high-level athlete for many, many years. And I was talking to her about her experience with actually creating vision boards, because she was more of the actual. I'm just a geek. I'm just fascinated by all this stuff. But if we're talking about vision boards, I get excited by actually really getting into how this stuff works neurologically. But you have an incredible story about what you use vision boards for yourself during your competitive years.
Yes, I do. And David, thank you, because you bring the science in where I'm like, it blows my mind. I feel things. So I like think about when you're with a childhood friend, like Ellie, when we go play softball. And Ellie is a friend of mine from high school, and we go play softball on Thursday nights in the summer. It brings us back when we're there. We talk about it all week, because we're 48 transported back to when we were 15, 16 in our high school years. You can feel it. Raise your hand if you're with me. If when you run into a friend, a childhood friend, and all of a sudden you feel different, you feel like you're back in 6th grade, you feel like you're back in high school, you feel like you're back in college, right? Like that's what we're talking about. You're like your true self. Meanwhile, life happens, shit happens, excuse my language. We all have challenges, and we're left scattered. There was a time in my life I remember I was at a meeting and I was like, I have all these titles. I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a niece, I'm an aunt, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an elite athlete, I'm in recovery, I'm a lawyer, I'm a Pilates teacher. I had all these titles. And I was sitting there in the middle of the meeting. I'm like, but who the F am I? Like, who am I? And 5 years ago, I gave you, a verbal vomit, a snapshot of my life. 5 years ago, I changed everything. And I changed my life because my life wasn't working. And I knew, I had the belief that I could be better, that I could be stronger, that life could be better. Okay. So 5 years ago, I thought, when I was sitting in my car, I had left, I told you I left with my 2 kids, changed my life, my location, community, everything, my job. And I was sitting there and I thought, when was I the strongest? When did I feel the best in my life? It was when I was swimming. It was when I was an athlete. When I was an athlete in swimming, I knew who I was. And guess what? Every single season in high school, we had vision boards. My coach was amazing. And so we create them as a team. And if you know anything about swimming, you have to hit certain times. Okay. So for me in high school, I wanted to make state, and then I wanted to win state. Right. So I had the time that it would take up in the middle of the vision board, and then all words around it. What got me motivated to swim, backstroke, fast, but the time was right there. Every morning I'd wake up, it was the first thing I saw. Every night I went to bed, it was the last thing I saw. I envisioned my race and I just looked at it. Okay. I never, ever, ever missed a goal time. Not once. I mean, that's magic. And so now, fast forward or go back 5 years, I'm sitting in the car. I'm like, I need to go back to my strongest self. And that's when I started racing again. And a lot of things aligned in the universe. We had the performance line come out with the nutritional company that we work with. And so I'm taking the performance. I'm going to swim in the morning, and I wanted to compete to make Team Isogenics, which is an elite athletic division. I hadn't swam in over 20 some years. And so I started racing in the morning. And what did I do? I had to come back to the basics. I wanted to replicate what I did when I was the strongest. So I created a vision board. And I put my time in yards. Okay. Swimming is swum in 2 different ways, yards and meters. I put 27.6 was the time I had for 50 backstroke right in my office. So every day I'm just looking at it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at it. Fast forward to my last meet, which was Pan Am Masters. I wore my shirt so you could see. And this meet was in meters. Guess what? I freaking won the race. I broke a record. And then when I was inputting my time for Team Isogenics, they convert the meter time. I didn't convert it. Math is not my strong suit. The computer converted it. Guess what time it spit back at me? 27.6. I mean, come on. Not 27.5, not 27.7, 27.6. So I didn't know why until I met David and I went on this journey with him. But what that was is that I dropped into my true self. I dropped in to my badass self, and I was focused. I was aligned. I was congruent, and I knew, and I had my brother, some of you know Mikey, used to, growing up, he'd say, man, you just had tunnel vision, and it would piss me off. But that's what I had, was tunnel vision. So I dropped into myself and created this magic by reprogramming my conscious mind from my subconscious just by the vision board. So if I can do that as an athlete, can't I do it in the rest of my life? I didn't know. I mean, it totally overwhelmed me. And that's why I dove deep into self-development and working with David. And I remember we were in Mexico. It blew my mind. He looked at me and he said, Sarah, let me ask you a question. And I was like, okay. What do you stand for? What do you want to stand for? And I was blown away. And I was like, well, that's a really good question. And how could I not know it? I'm 47 at the time, 47 years old. I don't know how to answer that question. And that's where the foundation came in for core values. That's where I knew my badass state as an athlete, right? But once I defined the core values that created that badass state, courage, love, hope. Look at the power to believe, baby, the power to believe. Those values drive me. And if I can keep going back into that state through what? Repetition. Remember that state, remember my values. Then I can write my goals down in every other area of my life. And I can put them on a vision board, and I don't have to do anything else. I just have it. I just put it out there in the universe, and it comes back to me. So that is my story about the magic of vision boards, because they work.
Well, and it's so incredible because again, it sounds like a lot, and I don't want you guys to get, say that's easy for him or it's easy for her. I mean, I've got a grade 10 education. I came back to Canada when I was 28. I started smoking pot when I was 13 years old. It was just, but we talk about mindset. We use all these metaphors, but we make it really complex because it's too much fragmented information, and it's all has some truth to it, but it's meaningless. Like a gym is like a golf course is meaningless to me because I can throw a club farther than I can hit a ball, right? So a golf course is completely useless to me. The gym is useless to most people. Like it really is, because again, because there's an underlying process that must be met before your actions actually land on something that's congruent. And it's one of these inescapable laws of the world. If you're incongruent and how you move through the world, then your life will be fragmented. And so when we look at developing a vision, and this is one of the things that we were talking about, like creating your own personal vision statement, your set of core values. And like my question to Sarah, like, what do you stand for? And I would say, yeah, most people that I talk to, they don't have a knee-jerk response. They don't have an easy answer. They don't really know. I mean, if it's kind of vague and kind of fluffy and not really of any substance, then it actually has no power. There's a beautiful statement that says, faith without works is dead. But the idea of faith actually is an embodied experience. It's not an intellectual idea. It's not just a thought, it's a feeling. Because what drives behavior, as you saw on that slideshow that I was showing you, what drives behavior is emotions. I want to know what's driving my emotions. What is underneath the seat of my emotions? It's my faith, it's my certainty, it's my stance. That's my practice. Everything else is secondary. How many people here know better but don't do better in certain parts of their life? Yeah, right, absolutely, everyone. If you didn't put your hand up, you're fibbing. Everybody knows better. Rarely do we do better. But why not? And that's the question I was trying to answer. Why not? Incongruency, philosophical incongruence, not taking a stand, realizing that the way the world was designed, the way we were designed to interact with our environment, we had a spiritual, cultural practice built in to who we were, to the very fabric of who we were for thousands of years, and then a 100-year gap, we just dumped it. We don't need that. And humans were so good at that, right? Zero capacity to see into the future. This seems like a good idea, right? And then 20 years later go, that was a really bad idea, right? It's killing everyone. This is a great idea. That's a really bad idea. We have no fish. This is a great idea. No, it's a really bad idea. 20 years later. Our capacity for foresight is just terrible, right? Very, very terrible. But if we dropped into this vision, we dropped into our values first, and said, I'm not going to make a decision on anything until I decide how I'm going to show up. And my personal vision statement, my values work in a few different ways. One, it's got to be good for me first, because it's not about self-sacrifice. There's no contribution in self-sacrifice, right? Seems like a good idea, doesn't pay off in the long term because you just burn out and you become resentful, right? It's got to be good. It's got to fill me up first. And when I'm full, am I not a natural contributor to the world around me? If I have lots of energy, am I healthy and I'm vibrant? By me being here, I am of contribution, right? But if it's good for me, it also has to be good for the people I interact with. It has to be good for my children, right? It's got to be good for my girlfriend, right? It's got to be good for the people in my community. It has to be systemic. It's not a selfish. We look at vision boards and what we want, and psychologists quite often look at it and say, well, it's selfish. You're just asking for me. No, it's just not necessarily. It's a spirit in which I desire these things to unfold. So having your personal vision statement, your personal mission statement for 2021 is something you need to figure out before you actually start deciding what you want. You decide how you're going to be there. And not only do you have to know what it is intellectually, you have to know how it feels. How does that idea express itself emotionally? And not only do you practice the idea, but you practice living in the emotion. You live in the emotion over and over and over again. And the brain, when the brain sees a pattern, it goes, hey, Robert's doing that thing again. Robert's doing that thing again. Robert's doing that thing again. 2 weeks later, Jesus, he's still doing that thing again. Okay, Robert, what's the deal? What are you after? And the brain starts paying attention, right? Because you can be mindful. You can watch, can you watch your own thoughts? Are you aware of your own thought process? Right? Then you're not your thoughts. Don't give them so much power. If I can observe my thoughts, I am not them. So if that stuff's seeping up from my subconscious, I want to seed my unconscious mind with some incredible beauty. And despite the tragedy of our lives, despite how, let's say you've had a rough go of life and you have lots of reasons to be bitter and maybe a bit nihilistic. Remember the experiment we did in Mexico? I said, listen, maybe when I was like 7 years old, and if I got beat up by a bully at school, the beating took 90 seconds and then it stopped. Now my memory of it lasted, let's say 40 years, but the event only took 90 seconds. So if at the day of your birth, an angel came down and said, Kathy, I have a stopwatch, Kathy, and listen, you're going to be born in a few months, and I hate to tell you, but Earth is kind of a volatile place. You got a birth certificate, somebody's going to mess with your life. Welcome to planet Earth. It's the price of admission, right? However, during these times of tragedy and challenge, I'm actually going to time it, like how long it took, right? Like how long did the beating by the bully took 90 seconds. So if I timed all the things that I'd rather not ever go through again, right, and not diminishing the challenge around tragedy and these things that we go through, not diminishing, I'm just saying, just for context, if I timed it second per second, so 60 seconds in a minute, right, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours a day, 160 hours a week, how much of my life was seeped in tragedy and malevolence and horrible things, minute by minute, not the memory, just the actual, the occurrence. I've been on the planet going on 56 years. I would say less than 3 weeks out of my entire life was steeped in tragedy and things I'd never want to do again and never experience again. What was happening when that was not happening? We don't know. We don't know. And all we're left with is the memory of the shit show that was some of those experiences. And that keeps coming back. Negative experiences are high resolution, the brain remembers them. If you do not have a daily practice of remembering the truth about you, that most of your life was beautiful, that so many people in your life were amazing, that you had abundance, you had all these things. Your practice of your values illuminates that. And as Robert's 2 weeks into the process, his brain goes, you know what? Oh my God, like 1970, I just remembered this. It was amazing. I hadn't thought about that thing in years. A couple of weeks down the road, everything he sees and smells and hears is reminding him of something beautiful about his life. And he has no choice but look at the world through a lens of gratitude, because the filtering system that he generated, because some of the challenges he may have had, have been altered by his practice. You with me? It's not complicated, folks. It really isn't. We've made it complicated. We've convoluted it. Personal development has just made a mess of the whole conversation, because there's a whole layer below that we have to understand. And just like Lori going to the gym, there's some stuff you got to figure out before you get under the squat rack, baby. You just don't hop under there and drop a bunch of weight and wonder why your spine just telescoped, right? If you don't have your practice, if you don't have a strong core, you will get hurt physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But most of your life is beautiful. You just don't have the practice in remembering it. You guys with me? Does that make sense? Right? So it's so much easier.
Sets and reps, right, David?
Sets and reps. It is just sets and reps. So now we're talking about, you're talking about alignment, Sarah. And remember we were discussing, when we went through the I Am Project piece, we were talking about all these pieces that fit together. Now, what was the idea between the values? So setting your values, and then if you're going to pick things for your board, what do I have to do first? What do I want to make sure of is every time I set these different images on the board, I want to make sure that each one is what?
Congruent with my values.
Yeah. Which means they're congruent with each other.
Congruent with my true self.
Every single one. Every single one has the same emotional context. Every single one has the same values. if I opened up my browser, went into Google, and I said, okay, I'm going to select some images. I want wellness, and I'll look for wellness. And of course, what will pop up for male wellness will show a bunch of 27-year-old male models shredded at 1% body fat, right? Look amazing, going, yeah, that'd be cool. I'll have one of those. I'll be that this year. And then I'll look at maybe wealth and financial abundance. And I'll see stacks of money in a giant boat. Hey, that's exciting. I'll throw that on my vision board. And then as I see things, here's the problem. Who's seeing the images? Is it me, like the adult, like the 55 going on 56-year-old guy here? Or is it a 13-year-old? The 13-year-old's still in my mind. He's in my episodic memory. The 13-year-old is looking through my eyes and he sees that guy, the 27-year-old guy with the 1% body fat. And he's going, yeah, I want to be like him. The insecure 13-year-old wants him, not me. Do you understand how that works? So the 13-year-old has a say in what goes on my board. And if you have 10 or 15 images on the board, it might be very possible that 10 to 15 different parts of your personality, different levels of maturity across the entire expanse of your life chose for you. How insane would that be, trying to make that work? Right? So again, like when Sarah was talking about congruency in her sport, she was an athlete in the pool. She was an athlete at school. She was an athlete when she went to bed. She was an athlete when she got up in the morning. She was an athlete hanging out with her friends, right? And the reason why that vision board worked for her, it's not because she was just a great athlete. She was in alignment emotionally, right? Philosophically, mentally, and then she had the practice of doing the work. It's the part that we're missing. So imagine, and then here's the beautiful thing. Imagine when you have your personal vision statement for 2021. You know how beautiful it's going to feel inside of you. You know how it's going to lift you up, not for anything in particular, just a way of being in the world, right? Just how you want to wake up in the morning before anything starts. This is who I just want to feel. I just want to live in this space. I don't care what happens. Burn my house down. I'm feeling amazing, right? You know, it's just the world, 2021, whatever. I don't care what happens. I feel great. I'm so in alignment. It's such a beautiful space. If you could, when we get ourselves there, not if, but when. And I put from that space, I choose wellness. And every time I work with somebody, and this is so interesting, and I say, and even as an experiment, try this for yourself. Look at what you want to accomplish this year, right? Write out the title, right? I want, maybe it's around money, maybe it's around health, maybe it's around relationships. So just write all that down over the next 24 hours. Write down all your goals for this year, and then put that away for a little bit. And then I want you to really get to work on actually deciding what your personal mission and personal vision statement is for 2021. What is it? What are those character strengths? What are those values? And as Sarah said so perfectly, what do you stand for? Write that out and spend some time with it, right? The year just started. We got some time, right? You don't have to hurry this process up. It's so important. Sit on it, pray on it, meditate it, think about it. Really soul search to figure that is so important because that's the core of who you are. And if you really struggle, as I said before, what are the gifts that you wish to give to the world in 2021? And that's a really great way to find, an easy way to find out what's really important to you. Once you understand what that is and you're sitting into it, now go back and write out what you want for 2021. The same titles, right? This is what I want for wellness. This is what I want for finances. This is what I want, and see if they're the same as what you wrote previously. And I assure you, they'll be so different. It'll just blow your mind how absolutely different they'll be because of your frame of mind, because of your alignment. And this part's it's just so beautiful. And again, it's just the way the nervous system works. It's just so amazing. Am I excited about this? But I am a little. Because if you get it, it changes everything, right? You just stop wasting so much time. If I'm sitting into this beautiful space of alignment and it feels good, and I just feel it in my guts, it's kind of permeating my cells, and I'm in this space, and I choose wellness, and this is what I want for wellness, and I have my financial goals, and I have my relationship goals, and I have my goals of contribution, and I have my goals of let's say a spiritual abundance, and I have all these goals set up. When you're in alignment, the effort that you put towards one automatically is the effort put towards all. right? Understand what that means. The effort you put towards one becomes the effort you put towards all. It becomes systemic. As I improve my wellness through this beautiful state, it automatically up levels all these other parts of my life at the same time. It's just how the mind and body works. It's really quite extraordinary. When I'm in the gym and I'm training and I had this idea of core strength, I know what it is. I know what it feels like, right? I practiced this whole core thing for decades. Every exercise is now a core exercise. If I'm doing a deadlift, my core becomes stronger, right? If I'm doing a squat, my core becomes stronger. If I'm doing jumping exercises, my core becomes stronger. If I'm doing a chin up, my core becomes stronger. You understand? You see, it is so fundamental. It's the one thing that we just never do. We never develop the foundational piece that pulls it all together. We're such in a hurry to get to the middle of the ladder to play with all the other kids. Nobody wants to start at the bottom of the rung. Don't make it complicated. Don't get attracted by sexy. You know, you don't need the 10 principles. You don't need, and it's not like the stuff that they're saying up here is false. It's not like there's anything wrong with any of the material that's out there. It's just at the wrong level. You need to drop underneath it and give it a foundation. Give it a foundation. You know, because if you've never read another book in your life, would you have enough information if you could act on a daily basis that would profoundly change your life? If you had never had access to another book, would you be okay? What do you think? Yeah, probably. If I burned all of your books and just gave you one, would you probably make a pretty good life out of it? Could you? Probably. Lady I was working with yesterday spent over $200,000 on personal development. In our 90-minute conversation, she said in that 90 minutes, this concept made more sense to her than all the money you spent, including Tony Robbins' Platinum Partner Program. There was a fundamental piece that we have to understand before all this other stuff makes sense. It's so simple. I didn't say it was easy. I just said it was simple. And it's the practice. And and there's history, beautiful history behind it. There's yeah, I mean, it's what we've been doing for thousands of years, except for just since the 20th century. We've kind of lost the plot, and we threw the baby out with the bathwater, even though the metaphor said not to, right? Does anybody have any questions so far? I know it's a lot, and I'm kind of very animated, so hopefully it's making sense, and I'm not overwhelming you with a bunch of information.
Come on, there's no questions.
Give me a thumbs up if this is actually making absolute sense. Absolute sense? Is it clear? Do you think this is kind of the missing piece for you? Possibly. Yeah, it's only been working for 6,000 years. Right? It's been around a long time. It's epigenetic. It's built into the fabric of what we are. It's like air, it's fundamental. And it just, I'm a bit of a reductionist. What I love to do when I'm looking at things is that I get all this chatter up here, and I like to strip it away and say, what's at the very base of this? How does this stuff work? And if I understand the foundational piece of it, then it makes it much easier to step up to the next level. You have no idea how much power you have if you stop playing up here in the stratosphere with all this insanity of things that are true, but not congruent and maybe not even relevant for you currently. Stop playing up here and drop underneath and stabilize yourself first. Stabilize yourself emotionally. Know how you want to be before you decide what you wish to do. Now, there's a big thing, of course, eliminating doubt and fear, right? Because we have lots of goals. How many people have failed at achieving their goals? Yeah, right? More than once? Yeah, right? And so funny because now we actually changed the language, right? You ever notice people change the language around goal setting? We don't do goal setting anymore. Why? It has too many negative things attached to it. Oh, yeah, that's right. Set a lot of goals, never followed through with any of them. I must be a loser. Okay. I set weight loss goals, never did it. It's just not me. Well, not necessarily. I set some financial goals. Yeah, I never hit it. Keep max out my credit card. Can't stop spending money at Starbucks. Well, at least last year, of course, we curtailed that a bit because we couldn't go, but you know, it wasn't voluntary. And we think, like, I set these goals, and we had these memories of these failures, but they're not failures. They were just incongruencies. So how do you eliminate the doubt and the fear? How do you crush it? Like, does anybody ever feel any doubt? Anybody doubtful at all? Yeah? Anybody have any fear? How about anxiety? Anybody ever get anxiety ridden? Yeah, I've had it where I've walked through my house and I just get hit in a wave and like, holy hell, I walk in my kitchen going, that didn't feel good. And then the next question I ask is that, who was that? Not why did that happen? I said, who was that? Why did I ask that question when anxiety flooded over me? Why did I ask who instead of why? Because I'm looking at my house. There's nobody, there's no knife wielding maniac in my home. I'm fine. I have money in the bank. I'm healthy. I've got friends. My kids are healthy. There's nothing in my environment that would suggest that I should react to that degree of anxiety. Why did it show up? Because my brain decided to go tripping down memory lane and start digging up some silliness from my past and drop it into my brain, drop it into me, right? So it might have been the 17-year-old version of me for some reason got evoked. And the memory opened up, bless you. The memory opened up, and as the memory opens up, the emotions come forward, and the emotions hijack something called our prefrontal cortex, which is the executive center of the brain. And as the emotions of that memory come forward, I become him, not me. And how do I know it's not me? Because I know how I feel. I know what my values are. I know what my strengths are, and I know what they feel, and I know where they show up inside of me. And if I'm not feeling that, then that's not me. Right? What else could it be? When you're depressed and anxious, you're looking around, I'm sobbing on my keyboard and there's nothing going on. Nothing in the last 2 months, it's all been good. I'm not making fun of our misery, but seriously, if it's all in context, we have to start understanding that we're so powerful. And all we're missing is the spiritual practice or these ritualistic practices that have been built into us since we've been on the planet. That's what we're missing. That's why it was so necessary. And that's why we practice it for thousands of years. And again, and that lack of foresight that humanity is so famous for, we just punted it in the 20th century. And what happened when we got rid of our spiritual practices? What happened when we got rid of that really rich cultural practices? We had Nazi Germany. We had Stalin, how's a nice little walk to the park. We had Maoist China. We had nihilism. And then we had 2020, right? It's insane. It's just insane. And again, it's just the simplicity of it. I think that's why we don't notice it, because we think my life has gone sideways so often, so many times. It must be something really complicated because I'm not seeing it. You felt like that? Like it's so complex, right? It's so outside of my bandwidth. It's so outside my capacity. And no, it's not like that at all. You just got to do the sets and reps. How do you wish to feel in 2021? What do your values feel like? Where do you feel them in your body? And why? And again, that's important. Where do you feel fear? Where do you feel fear in your body? Point to it. If you feel fear, where do you feel it? How about anxiety? If you feel anxiety, like I get it every now and again. Where do you feel anxiety in your body? Where does it show up? Point to it. Point to it in your body. Where do you feel it? Yeah, even there, right? Right. How about doubt? Where do you feel doubt? These are negative emotions. Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you something. Yeah, fearing buried alive, never die. Yeah. Exactly. So let me ask you something really important. You know where they feel, and it only took you seconds to point to it, right? Yeah, depression, anxiety. Yeah, in a second, I know exactly where. Tell me, where do you feel compassion? Tell me, read out. Where do you feel compassion? Okay.
Yeah, in my heart.
Yeah. Okay. So where do you feel? Let's say Where do you feel courage? Where do you feel courage? I mean, you got to be courageous to be alive on this planet, right? So the reason why I'm asking these questions is that emotions drive behavior. We practice anxiety, depression, self-doubt how many times? For how much of our life? We practice it. We give far too much credit to circumstances. We don't give enough credit to practice, right? It has to be on us because we're the only one that can change it. It has to be on us. It's not our fault, but it's our responsibility. So we know where these limiting emotions feel like. Instead of compartmentalizing the emotions, instead of putting them in a little box saying, I'm a parent or I'm a business owner, I got to function. That's going over here. I got to go to work. I'll deal with that stuff later, which we never do, however, but you know, we put these little boxes. And the problem is, and Brene Brown, who I absolutely love, Brene Brown once said, you can't single out emotions and just and simply buffer one. You can't compress one emotion. If you don't like anxiety, you just can't press it down and numb it. If you numb one, you numb all of them. You numb all of them at the same time. And that's horrific. Because my unwillingness to experience fear and I'd say various types of anger and these negative emotions, my fear of them, my unwillingness to engage with them and try to sort it out means that my capacity to feel love and joy and connection is also limited by the fact that I compress these emotions over here. They're all connected. That's why courage is such a powerful attribute that you really want to develop. Because at the level that I want to experience love and connection, I must be willing to experience pain and challenges. I must be able to do that. It's the hero's journey, right? And we study Envision more, and again, this is a bit beyond. I know it's kind of making this a bit deep and mystical, but it's so powerful. It's how we've been talking. It's how we've been doing things for centuries. And sorry, Sarah, you can jump in any time because I'm just babbling on here like no tomorrow.
No, not at all. But what you said was so on point. How do you feel when you drop into your core values? And if you don't know what they are, think right now about 3 things that you want to stand for, or 1 thing you want to stand for. Does it feel good or does it feel bad? When we think of fear, when we think of anxiety, when we think of overwhelm, I know those feelings so well. I don't want to feel them. I don't want them to run my life for the rest of my life. So if I can train my mind and drop and do sets and reps, fall into my badass state, I don't have to be in the pool to be in my badass state. If I can train myself to fall into my courage, love, and hope, and that's my gifts that I want to give the world, then I feel good. Am I there all the time? No, I'm a work in progress. Okay. But when you can feel good, and that's what we're here for, I didn't know it was even possible I know how to get my body in shape. I know how to go to the gym and work my muscles and get my body in shape. How do I get my mind in shape so that I can achieve every other goal outside the pool? And it's exactly this way. By feeling good, feeling congruent, feeling aligned with the person that you are, stripped of fear, stripped of doubt, and stripped of worried. You're out of this head. Drop down so that when the fear comes up, whoop, wait a minute. I got to drop into, I'm courage, I'm love, I'm hope, I'm courage, I'm love, I'm hope. And I get that tunnel vision to drop in and I can feel them in my body. And if I do it enough times, then I feel good the majority of the time. And I feel good more and more and more. And my thoughts turn to gratitude instead of into the negative internal dialogue. It's not perfect. It's a work in progress. We're human. It's called life. But if we can look at this year coming up, 2021, and envision from the standpoint of our core values of what we want to serve, what we want to give to the world, what makes us light up and feel good, then what do you think the outcome's going to be? It can't be anything but magnificent. It can't be anything but magic. Because while you're there, you believe. You know, a lot of what David said, I go back and I think about my grandma. My grandma was, yeah, Deb. My grandma was Wonder Woman to me, okay? And whenever anything got tough, she'd go in her room and she'd take out her rosary and she'd say the rosary. That was her faith. That was how she was raised. They went to church every day. She brought my dad to church every day. That was her foundation. So she would drop into her foundation, into her faith. When she was presented with any problem, she would find the solution there. So for me, that's my comparison. I'm spiritual. I don't go to church. I mean, I've been there, but whatever. That's not my practice. I'm very spiritual. So if I can practice that same peace, that same internal belief, and I can get it, then I can share it and we can and create. And then my goals, my circumstances may not have changed, but my life has changed because I see it differently. I mean, how many of you amazing people have come into my life in the last 5 years? Everybody that's on here, besides Ellie and I and Debbie and I, like, that's amazing. Amazing people start coming into your life when you switch that around in the situations, like what David's talking about with the science and the episodic memory, like things, the universe starts bringing you things that you're looking for if you practice the sets and reps for seeing the goodness and feeling good while you're doing it.
And one of the great simplicities is that it's how many people here pursued a career? How many people here pursue health? Right? So just think about what the language means. Just think, what does pursue mean? I have to leave where I am to go where I'm not, right? I'm always in this direction. What if you didn't have to pursue anything? What if you could actually just stay where you are and your primary job is to make very, very clear how it is that you're going to be, what it is that you want. And what it is that you want begins to show up in your experience because you're so congruent day to day. Instead of actually having to pursue something, it just shows up in front of you. I'm not saying there's not work involved. I'm not saying that all of a sudden, Pure Later drops off or UPS drops off a big brown box. Oh my God, I got it. Right? It's not quite like that. But I'm saying is that opportunities and circumstances will align themselves to who you're being, not to what you're after. It's a side effect. And I've seen this by being more present to how I want to show up and being that experience that things become apparent. So I'm not trying to pursue something because every time I pursue something, I have to leave one part of my life to go seek another. And we see this all the time in career. When I first got married, I'm married, going to have children, started a business expanded, it grew, it was very exciting. And I was pursuing a career, I was pursuing finances, to feed my family. And that just made sense because collectively as a society, we agree that's what you got to do. But what ends up happening is that, of course, you start moving away from your family, you move away from your relationships, you move away from your health, you start moving away from all the things that really matter, and you expense them off. Right? And it's just a devastating thing to do, and it's not necessary. But we all buy into that's the way it's got to be. Yes, we got to make a living. Yes, we actually have to do things in life. But it's so interesting that when you're not in pursuit and when you're in alignment stops you from chasing anything. Things just become clear and they show up as a part of your day-to-day experience. You understand that? It's a really big difference. It's not as exhausting. It's not as demoralizing, right? It's just nothing is more, ranges more guilt for me as a parent, being gone for 12 hours every single day. 5 o'clock, I'm up before my kids are awake, and I'm home just to tuck them in time for them to go to bed, especially when they're younger. But I had to do it because I was pursuing a career. And we just got backwards way of thinking about things. We've changed so many things so terribly on our planet and the way our culture works that we're just trying to go home, aren't we? I just want to go home. I want to go home where my grandmother was there, my aunt and uncle were down the street, and we lived over here, and I want to go home. That's really what I want to do, where life is predictable and there's some sense of congruency. And you get in this process, you can actually build it for yourself. You can go back home. How wonderful will that be? That's part of the vision, right? So again, don't wish for things from the mindset of a 13-year-old child who's looking through your eyes, who fantasizes about having that. Don't wish for things from the mind of a 20-year-old who's still not mature, who's still a bit maybe self-centered and wishes for that. Don't allow them to control your destiny by give them access to the outside world. They're part of your experience, but you control the narrative, or you should be controlling the narrative, and you do so with your values. And if you're not feeling like yourself, Ellie, it ain't you. Don't buy into her. So, I mean, it's so fundamental. Listen, and now I'm gonna stop this here because I'm a chatterbox. I just love this stuff. It's so interesting, right? Because it just, when people go, wow, that's so amazing. That makes so much sense. And I've been thinking about this an awfully long time. And it's just such a beautiful thing. As we set this up, we were looking at, now, did you get any value out of today's call, by the way? Was this helpful on some level, right? It give you something to go forward on, like to the rest of this year. So give you something to chew on, something to think about. Definitely, if we stirred up your brain a little bit, going, wow, okay, well, that's something to think about. I'll ponder this for the next 4 months, right? It gave you something to think about. And Sarah and we've seen the transformation. Again, we shared our time with our other colleagues in Mexico. We've seen these things unfold. We start witnessing the power of it. So if you got tremendous benefit from it today, then that's exactly what we hope, because we know this year can be. It can, I'm not sure this year is going to be based on what they're doing. I just know what I'm doing. And that's what I'm trying to control. And I think collectively, if enough of us show up in a real beautiful way, that we can really turn things around powerfully and choose a beautiful narrative. Sarah and I were talking over the last couple of days, we were putting this together, and we thought about extending this. If you guys are interested, we wanted to wanted to get into the work of vision boarding. And now, if you're really comfortable with doing it, creating your own vision board, if you have no material to go on, then go at it. And follow me on social media. Like if you're not connected to Sarah or myself, make sure you connect with us on social media if you have questions. It's obviously not hard to get a conversation out of me. That's obviously an easy thing to do. And I obviously love this stuff, and we both do. So reach out to us on social media through Facebook and connect with us. But we put another workshop together. And actually, we were just talking about this today. Sarah, I'm going to bring up a slide here if you want to go over this with us.
Sure.
A second here. There we go.
So if you found value and you want to continue this conversation, for the next 2 Thursdays, we are going to hold space for you to come and build your vision board and expand the conversation on how do I get rid of doubt and fear? How do I ask the universe for help? How do I create something from nothing? And how do I convert gratitude into magic? And we'd love to invite each one of you to join us to create your own vision board while diving deep into these questions. So for $100, come with us for the next 2 Thursdays, the 21st and 28th, from 6 to 7:30. So we'll keep it. Is it 6 to 7:30 Central Standard Time?
Yeah. Well, there's
big problem with all the time changes. All right, I am not good with. It's 8 o'clock. What is it? 9 o'clock, 9:15 here, and it's 6.
Yeah, so yeah, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Central Standard Time is 2 hours difference, right? So 6 for me, 2 for you, 9 p.m. for the people on the East Coast.
Yes, Lori. Oh, you're in the East Coast.
Yeah.
I thought you had a question. So think about it. Decide if you want to go forward. Decide if you want to take these concepts into making your own vision board so that you can envision and kill it and feel good in 2021. If you decide tonight, if you're like, yes, I'm in, then David has a special bonus for you. It's our sister project. And if not, take your time. And we're just honored that you guys were here. And we are so grateful to each and every one of you.
Do you guys have any questions? I mean, you know, again, I want to make sure that we get through all this stuff here. But do you have any questions of what we discussed today? You know, please feel free. I mean, you have the opportunity here. I'll stay here as long as you want to talk, obviously, because I like to talk.
I love what you said, Al. Ellie said, she loves, if you look on the chat box, I love how you explain the concept of what can I bring to 2021? Totally different, right? Instead of what can I do? What can I bring? How can I serve? So interesting. And my mind is already spinning around what I can bring to this year ahead. Definitely kindness.
Yeah.
And I can and will bring kindness and vibrant energy. And I'll bring that to people. Like if we don't think about that, if we don't make an intention, if we're not focused on what we can bring,
Right,
then it just doesn't happen. Sets and reps.
I love that. Yeah, it's such a different way of looking at the world, and you know, it just, you know, I'd be lying if I said you know, this was mine. This was just, I just looked at what was already there. It's like I'm more like a philosophical archaeologist. You know, I went digging, and I want to get all the stuff off of it, all the dirt off of it, all the confusion off of it, all the spins, the whole personal development world, which has provided huge value. I'm not saying it hasn't done any good. I'm just saying, but it's created a lot of confusion at the same time. And for the amount of money spent that people spend on it, like it's $11 billion a year in the US, $11 billion a year in the US on personal development, a year. $250 billion a year on issues related to depression. You know, it's that incongruency. It just was so scattered. And I don't know of any other way to align ourselves more powerfully than simply decide, how do I wish to be, and make that my practice. And from that space, you know what to do. You know what you know, like anything that aligns to it will show up in your reality. Dr. Joe Dispenza has been talking about this and been just astounding people for the last 5 years or so. But it just takes direct thought. It takes consistency. It takes practice. You know, there's some power in it. And when we go through this workshop for the next 2 days, what we'll set up is we'll set up yet another Facebook page. Are you excited to be a part of another Facebook page? I know. I just love trying to navigate through the myriad of, oh my God, I get lost. But the reason why we set it up is that we want to give you guys a place to practice, and a place to get supported, and a place to have these conversations, right? So it's not, you know, when the workshop is done after the second Thursday, the work's not done. Because we want to prove a point. You know, the idea behind this is to prove a point that there's a way of doing this that's not about self-sacrifice, and prove a point to the people connected to us. Like, how many people will change because your life did? I ask my fitness clients this all the time. When you succeed, when you actually step into the alignment that you know that you're capable of, how many lives connected to you will be impacted by your decision? By your decision. 6 degrees of separation, tens of thousands. About 7 or 8 years ago, I had 2 friends in Australia, and I knew this nutritional thing, this nutritional program would be amazing for them. And I love these friends. I talked to them for 18 months. They never got back to me, ever. They're in Australia, I'm in Canada, dead air, no feedback, nothing. I go, wow, I thought these were my friends. Well, finally, they you know, their life was complicated. I took it personally. I shouldn't, but that's what we do, you know, silly humans. Anyhow, once I got in contact with them, we got into flow. They understood what I was talking about. My connection, my desire to support these 2 beautiful people that I absolutely love. There's just such amazing friends of mine. Because of the conversation I had with those 2 people, we've altered the lives of 250,000 people because of those 2 people. You have no idea how impactful it is. That is your responsibility. It's powerful. You don't have to be somebody else. You just have to be you. And there's so much power in that. And, you know, and right now I think the world needs a few heroes. Just saying. Right? The world needs a few heroes. And I'll end it with this, is that there's something called the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is an old story told in many different ways. But the hero's journey is kind of like this. We go into life, right, seeking our fame and fortune, right? We're on a journey. And every journey actually has a monster, a fire-breathing monster for some reason, right? A dragon. And the dragon, if you look a dragon in the eyes, if you've read the stories, look a dragon in the eyes, he paralyzes you. And of course, he'll consume you. Of course, you come around the corner, you see a big fire-breathing dragon, you'll turn and run, turn tail and run like hell. Or you'll fight it. You'll fight the dragon. Do you know what the dragon represents? Stress. The dragon was the old way of expressing this is what happens when stress goes after you, right? You run, you fight, or you numb out. It's your vagus nerve, it's your HPA axis, it's your stress circuit. And this is an old, ancient story. So what was interesting? So and some of the stories, a lot of the weaker knights, the less heroic people turned tail and fled through the woods, pieces of armor falling off, right? Horses already gone. A few of them just stood there and terrified, and the dragon just had lunch. But what was always there with the dragon and the knight? There was a fair maiden, and she was always tied up to the pole. The fair maiden represented our virtue, right? Because dressed in white, young virgin maiden, virtuous, right? She represented our virtues. And if we overcome our fear, we slay our fear, we rescue our virtue, we rescue our character, we rescue the best part of us. And inside that cave is full of jewels and treasures. That's who we become, valuable. We become really, truly worthwhile and valuable to the world around us. It's an old story. It's been told in every culture and so much more powerful. We are on that journey. And most of the world, unfortunately, is either running or numbing. And they're not fighting the dragon, they're fighting each other. So such a beautiful, such a simple story, but again, these stories are just so profound. And that's our journey through life. Like I said, 2021 needs a few more heroes. Face the dragon, face your fear, rescue your virtue, your character, claim the treasure that is your life and it's who you're becoming, and give that gift to the world. That's my hope for you. Wow. Yeah, I just love this conversation.
I do too.
Now that my adrenals are all burned out from being all wired up in the last hour. So I'm gonna just give me a moment here, and I'm going to, I lost something here a second ago. You'll be getting an email within a day or so around this, around the workshop that Sarah had spoken about. An email come through just shortly after, but I'll find a link for you here. Here we go.
And if you follow me on social media, Sarah Goggin Young, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, it's 6:15 Central Standard Time. Get up, tune in, and start your day vibing high. Feeling good, because that's what I want to do. I want to start my day off taking time, carving time out for myself, and holding space for everybody else so we can do the same and be focused and intentful as we start the day.
Yeah, and again, as we leave off here tonight, whatever you decide to do, again, it's just, but please know that I'm still as part of your space. If you choose to do this with us, that would be exciting. It'd be fun to have you come along and bring anybody else you think that would enjoy this experience. And if you don't, still stay in my space. If you have questions, I'd like to help you. We just really need to change the narrative of what's going on. And the narrative is full of fear and selfishness. And I think I think we can do something really powerful. And it's so fundamental, and it's so ancient, and it's so what we are. And it'd be really nice to see how much change we could be. Well, as the old saying goes, be the change you wish to see in the world. And the change really is so fundamental. So thank you guys for investing your time. I know our time is always very valuable to all of us. And so I really honor the fact that you came here and took a chance, took a chance to listen to this this conversation. And I really do hope you get something out of it. And again, regardless of whether you decide to come on the ride with us starting next Thursday or not, please stay in contact if you have questions. I'd certainly love to be a part of your space and offering whatever information and support we can along the way. Because again, you know, if we're going to make this better, we're going to do it together.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
team,
thank,
right?
I just want to say thank
Love
you.
as a team.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks so much to you, David, and to Sarah. And it's really amazing. And I've used vision boards myself to do some amazing stuff, including a #1 Billboard hit. And I know they work. And there's only one person in the world who said they don't use vision boards anymore and they've used them for years to get where they are. And that's Oprah. She's the only person. So unless you're at Oprah's level or higher, which I doubt anyone is here, you should probably look into vision boards because they definitely work. You can stop when you've hit that level. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Thanks for being a part, my friend. Appreciate it.
Andrew, I loved your mission statement. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. I actually, I have a podcast and I have a YouTube channel, and David was actually a guest on my podcast, and it was fantastic. So yeah, really good stuff and really wonderful information. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, listen, have a beautiful night. Thanks for being a part of the process. And then again, if we don't see you next Thursday, please stay connected by social media. We still love to be a part of your space and to continue on this conversation. All right. Okay.
Well, dream better, everybody.